Shalom, Yasharallah. Peace be unto the nation of Israel. Modern day so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and speckled Israelites being Israelite foreigners scattered across the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon the Great, the main place for captivity, and we are the Most High, Yahweh's chosen people of the nation of Israel. So without further ado, as always, in the Lashon Kodash, being the Holy Tongue, as in the Paleo Hebrew, being the ancient Hebrew, we give all praises, glory, and infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Barach Rash. All right, meaning all praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, who is our strength and our Redeemer, and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, Mashana Kabawadium Lahasakwanium, Shalom Kadabarakab, meaning double honors to the apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone, and Shalom on the salutations to Bayashid Awadah, meaning the House of David, all right, which is the governing body of the one-third elect remnant of the nation of Israel, along with the rest of the one-third elect men, women, and children of Israel. All right, so, and this is your fellow servant Malak Rayab. Back at it again with another lesson through the spirit of prophecy, being the testimony of our Lord and Savior, Hamashiach Habashai, who the master of the world ignorantly refers to Jesus Christ. And we're going to keep this this video relatively quick and concise regarding this quick, World War III, algorithm. This World War III update within the rumors of wars prophecy in St. Matthew, the 24th chapter, that Yahweh shall prophesy regarding these nations and including the kings of the East. All right, so this is on Times of India platform entitled "The China Top Official Troll J.D. Vance Calling Americans Peasants." All right, this was updated earlier today. It says Vice President J.D. Vance recently used the term peasants when he spoke about DJT's tariffs and how U.S. borrows money from Chinese peasants to buy things that Chinese peasants manufacture. Beijing condemned the comment and said Vance lacked knowledge and respect because, Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance referred to Moab, or the biblical nation of the so-called Chinese, as peasants. Okay, mocking, the fact that China is one of the U.S.'s top producers. All right, so some kind of reverse psychological attempt to undermine, China's contributions of imports of the necessities of that are being imported on China's behalf into America. J.D. Vance referred to the Chinese as peasants. Okay, as a further way of boasting at Esau's enemies, as is prophesied in Psalm the 10th chapter. Okay, to further exalt himself over these nations on the earth, speaks about in Revelation 17:1. It's a whore that sits upon many waters. So it says, Beijing condemned the comment and said Vance lacked knowledge and respect. Now, as a U.S.-China trade war escalated with each hiking its tariff, a top Chinese official, Zhao Belong, in a television address said, "Let those peasants in the U.S. wail before the 5,000 years of Chinese civilizations." Belong is the director of the Hong Kong and Macau Work Office of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee. In his statement on Hong Kong's National Security Education Day, he said the U.S. has isolated China by keeping a 145% tax on Chinese goods. All right, which is a reference to Trump increasing the U.S. tariffs against China's exports. That they've imported into the U.S. of 145%. All right, which I'm going to go ahead and play this quick video on this platform by Kim Iverson.
Ultra Fire cervical care pillow. Even orthopedic doctors are using it. Are we going to win the trade war with?
All right, fair use.
China? No. Are we going to win the trade war with China? No, probably not. I do want to show you guys some videos of what's going on. First of all, China is not planning on backing down. Watch this.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States, and we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
When you hear Donald Trump say China wants a deal, it just doesn't know how to go about it. They're proud people. J.D. Vance talks about Chinese peasants. What do you make of their conduct in this respect?
If J.D. Vance thinks that he's dealing with the peasants in China, and I'm proud to be a descendant of the peasants, most of us are descendants of the peasants anyway, that's our tradition. We are farmers before, but now we are one of the leading industrialized economies in the world. So I'm sorry, J.D. Vance doesn't know what he's talking about. And therefore, I don't think there will be China-US dialogue unless the United States changes its attitude towards China. Deal with China as it is. Show respect to China, show respect to the Chinese people, and don't try to impose your prejudice and biased view about China or about the rest of the world.
Okay. And he actually had, the Moabite had a point when he brought out, the meaning of the word peasant. Right? Because when people think of peasant, on the outside looking in, peasant, the term peasant would appear to have a negative connotation behind it in terms of classifying somebody as a low level degenerate, especially in the financial sense. But when you actually look it up, the term peasant just simply means a poor farmer, typically of low social status, all right, and whom would own or rent a small piece of land, for cultivation purposes, all right, raising crops and so forth. So, really the word peasant not even really a bad thing. It's not a bad term. And the Moabite broke that down. See, this is what Esau's, proud, pompous mind doesn't understand or neglects, the fact that, the so-called Chinese, which are the biblical Moabites, are a nation of warriors and scholars, for the most part. Now they are, they are the further, the inbred or stock of incest babies by way of how their forefather Moab was created, all right, through incest, all right, by way of Lot's daughters, sleeping with him, all right, tricking him to lay down with him, and a child was produced by one of his daughters through that act of incest by the by the name of Moab. And this, this is why they are a nation of incest babies, and hence why they look handicapped. And this is why, a term for that, another modern day term for that is Mongoloidism. So it's not a coincidence that there's a town, in China that is known as Mongolia. Okay, so this is why these people look this way. Okay, being the biblical Moabites. All right, but they're not they're not a low down civilization by a long shot. And this Moabite understands that. Okay, especially by way of his breakdown of the word peasant. All right, so I'm gonna leave this up. Autumn Brothers, I'll leave this link in the live chat before I end off the live. For the sake of time, I'm not gonna be able to get to the other part I wanted to bring out. But what I'll do is I'll find a timestamp of that particular segment or that part of this segment in this video, and I'll go ahead and put it in the comment, the comment section. All right, as soon as it officially loads onto my channel. All right, and but in the meantime, go back to this article. Actually, let me get this first precept in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51 and verse 7 in the NLT. All right, and it reads, Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai's hands, a cup that made the whole earth drunk. The nations drank Babylon's wine, and it drove them all mad. Okay, so these nations in a frenzy-like state of mind, okay, being spiritually inflamed by Esau's wine and fornication is Western philosophy. And when there's information in the body, case in point, is not a pleasant thing, okay, especially, when too much wine is consumed without water, okay, which brings about, aches in the body and headaches and so forth, all right. So these nations are proverbially, been made drunk off this wine, and they're suffering, the proverbial bodily, ailments behind it or consequences, all right, by consuming, Esau's wine to the point to where they're geared up to retaliate against Esau Edom. Okay, even though they willingly partook in his wine, all right, and were not bamboozled or ensnared to drink of his wine. They drank of it willingly. Because China is a top world economic foreign partner, with Esau, okay. I mean, they have the same boss, all right, on behalf of these Zionist bankers, the biblical dukes of Edom, but yet, they're preparing for war against this whore, America, Babylon the Great. So I'm gonna get 2 Ezra 15 and 47. All right, but before I do, you know what? I'm actually gonna play this part in the video. See if I can find it real quick, because it goes in. It's relevant in terms of what has been discussed thus far. So yeah, here it is right here. I'm gonna rewind a little bit.
Trump is now in his first month in office, and we want to know how you think he's doing as president. You guys know how I think he's doing.
We really break down what's happening and whether or not this tariff war, trade war is even going to work. This is a post from a Chinese national saying, you guys are all blaming China, you're blaming us, but it's really your own fault, and America now needs a revolution.
They rob you blind, and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs won't ship your job to China. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, leave millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in...
Including speaking of roads, including the China Belt Road Initiative, which is a major infrastructure project on behalf of China, where there were, including like 72 different countries involved in this project that would further bolster their geoeconomic influence. All right. And it further aiding them in bypassing the petrodollar in terms of international trade. All right. So, so he's saying that, the Americans, U.S. tax-paying citizens should be in an uproar over that, because their own U.S. government has further aided into China's, economy. Okay. Being boasted. Now, while theirs is being compromised. Case in point. All right. So, this is a way of him facetiously mocking Esau. Okay, because he's not really thinking about Jake when he's making this comment. He's thinking about Esau, Edom. Case in point. Because this is who Moab is targeting with this rhetoric. It's not Jake. Because they know Jake is destroyed. And this is why one of them Chinese officials has said that he referred to Esau as a hypocrite. For playing the global bully in so many words, for the fact that, Esau has oppressed, the Negroes and indigenous, or in this case, the Native Americans, as that Moabite had mentioned some years ago, which could easily be found, in the internet. But, so the further confirmed, these devils know who we are, man. All right. Including all these you devils, not just the devil, Esau, Edom, all you devils. All right. You wicked, low down heathen nations. All right. So, yeah. So those roads that he mentioned that, America has been funding. All right. On our behalf. OK, on behalf of these U.S. tax-paying citizens, would include that Belt and Road Initiative project by China. All right. Including the participation of at least 72 different countries and regions. OK, forming that Silk Road project. And so this is all death by a thousand cuts in terms of China further overtaking the U.S. and global dominion along, as a part, another BRICS partner, okay, under, alongside Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, okay. So Esau's losing. Esau is playing. He's fighting a losing battle. Case in point. I'm gonna continue.
Our people, my family also benefit from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and pour billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wills to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs feed you lies. Well, they made you fat, poor, and addicted.
And that's why recently, Moab, right, the modern day Chinese, created this fake AI simulation of fat Edomites and a couple of fat Jakes working in some sweaty factory, okay, as a way to say that, China runs America in terms of, the imports that we get from China, that majorly makes up the necessities that keeps this industry going, these various industries and marketplaces and franchises going in America, especially through technology from all the cell phones and other technological gadgets that we get from China. OK, so China, further contributes into America's economy, and they know that that's a part of their leverage geoeconomically over Esau. OK, case in point. Continue this video.
Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back.
And and that's not going to happen. All right. The only way America, Babylon the Great, is going to be taken is by Yahweh Shai in the midst of war, as a booty, claiming America as his own. Okay, in these last days, by destroying this place, which is the main place for our captivity, while he redeems the children of Israel. Okay, thus redeeming us from these curses. So let's go ahead and get this in 2 Ezra 15 and 47 in a GNT. And it says, "You Asia are to be pitied." Now, in Asia is just really the proper term of referring to the so-called Middle East. Okay, including you kings of the East in Revelation 16 and 12 that will engage in this war through your armies. Okay, ironically, including the very nation that are mightily referred to as Asians. Okay, the biblical Moabites. Okay, so this is it says, "You Asia are to be pitied. You are doomed. You have enjoyed the splendor and glory of Babylon. You have imitated her and dressed up your daughters to look like prostitutes to please and gratify your lovers who have always lusted for you." All right. Now, this term prostitute more so going into the context and of a spiritual context in terms of these heathen nations. All right, especially those within Asia. All right, including you modern day Asians of the biblical nation of Moab. You know what I'm saying? Imitating Esau. Okay, a perfect example of that is perfect example of that is you Moabites, emulating Esau's dress, through Esau's attire, including his emulating Esau by wearing that 3-piece Freemasonic suit, or a suit nonetheless with that Babylonian phallus tie around your neck. Okay, a modern day necktie. All right, that originates back to the fertility god Prius. That was often worshipped in Rome, the pagan Western Roman Empire. All right, so that's a part of that wine. Okay, that you heathen have drunk off of, making you mad, because you realize that you've been proverbial bed with the devil, emulating his ways and engaging with him in international trade and similar foreign affairs. So this is 2 Ezra 15 and 48 in the GNT. It says, "Because you have imitated that vile prostitute and everything she has done or planned, the Most High God Yahweh by Shemeshah has this to say," because America is like a prostitute, a dirty, filthy woman, okay, that sits upon many waters, that whore that sits upon many waters, says in many governments. It is described what those governments are in Revelation 17 and 15. Case in point. All right. So with that, this is, let me see, 2 Ezra 15 and 49. Give me 1 second. Second Ezra 15 and 49 in the GNT says, "I will send disasters upon you. I will make you a widow and send poverty, famine, war, and epidemics to destroy your homes and bring ruin and death." All right. So you Moabites of Asia, all right, as in the biblical area, okay, of the modern day quote unquote Middle Eastern area, all right, will not be exempt, including communist China, despite your economy being, a prominent, prestigious economy. All right. You are not going to be exempt in terms of the curses of Israel, our people, overpassing you, including war and famine and death, because you will be put to death through your armies, your military, in the midst of this last world's war. Case in point. OK. All right. So because case in point, you gooks are proud, man. OK, you damn slants. All right. You're extremely proud, especially Xi Jinping. OK, and that devil that was speaking in that last video that I played on Kim Iverson's platform, is a perfect example of the pride of Moab. I believe the scriptures speak about that. OK, I may look for that in a moment. But you Moabites are also proud, man. OK, case in point. So you're not going to be exempt. OK, from this upcoming destruction. All right. OK, which is biblically known as Harmagedon. Case in point. So this is 2nd Ezra 15 and 50. It says, "A power of which you boast will wither like a flower when a burning heat is sent upon you." And that burning heat is going to come through that lake of fire, that second death. OK, now these so-called scientists, OK, mainly on behalf of Esau Edom, OK, projects this heat of these intercontinental ballistic missile warheads to be projected of 1,000,000 degrees, but being which heat is compared to the heat of the nucleus of the sun in so many words. But it's unfathomable to the mortal mind how hot this fire is going to be, and nobody in their right mind wants to find it out. That's why it's a terrible thing to fall within the hands of living power, and which is why it's prevalent to seek Yahweh by Hashem and Shai in these last days. Okay, which only the elect of Israel would do. Okay, so let me see here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and segue over to 2nd Ezra 16 and 1, and it says, "Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria." All right. So you other heathen nations will be involved in this last world's war, including, you kings of the East. All right. Within the current, within the area of the Eastern Hemisphere. OK, modern day Asia. All right. Including you kings of the East that are modernly referred to as Asians, quote unquote, because you have impending destruction that is destined for you as well, for afflicting the nation of Israel. Because, case in point, you Moabites, you modern day Chinese, had our people in slavery for 18 years. All right, we're seeing the Judges 3 and 14. Okay. Then you also had us in that what's that slave trade, man? I'm about to look it up. You know what? I ain't gonna. You can look it up. For all those who, into history, and so forth as I am. Because secular history is filled with biblical prophecy, but there was a slave trade that these Moabites caused Jake to suffer by way of, man. Case in point. All right, I'm gonna look it up real quick. All right, so not only in the ancient sense that you Moabites had us in slavery, but you've had us in captivity or slavery, okay, on more than one occasion throughout the course of secular history. All right. Damn, man, what the hell was that slave trade called? Now, if I find it a little later on, I'll go ahead and also put that in the the Silk Road slave trade. Okay. Yeah, you Moabites had the Silk Road slave trade. All right. All right. So you on behalf of the Tang Dynasty, case in point. All right. Where so-called you had our people in slavery. All right, or as early as the 4th century, under the Tang Dynasty. Case in point. So there's some deep history there between us and you, including us and Moab. All right, so you Moabites are not going to get away. All right, so That's pretty much a quick synopsis on that. I'm gonna go ahead and continue though. Yeah, that was pretty much that. That was pretty much just, anyway. 2nd Ezra 16:1. It says, let me see. 1 second, Baba Shah. All right, so it says, woe be to thee, Babylon and Asia, woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria. Gird up yourselves with cloths of sack and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. All right. It says, a sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? A fire sent among you, and who may quench it? Okay, because fire has come upon you, you heathen nations, all right, especially Edomites, and including you Moabites. Okay. All right, so with that, I'm going to continue. Yeah, this is verse 5. It says, plagues are sent unto you, and what is he that may drive them away? All right. Read that again. It says, Slovakia. It says, plagues are sent unto you, and what is he that may drive them away? Okay. So you're not you're not going to drive these plagues away, including the greatest of all plagues. All right. Which is that lake of fire, that second death. So this is yeah. So with that, let me see. Let me get this next precept. Let's see what I'm gonna get. I'm going to get Jeremiah 50:9. This is Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 9. It says, for lo, I'll raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country. All right. And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. All right. These arrows are these nukes. Okay. Being shot from the north country. All right. The kings of the east within the eastern hemisphere. Case in point. Okay. All right, so with that, all right, so in these kings, the north or the eastern hemisphere is going to include China, all right, the Moabites, okay, little Moab, North Korea, all right, Ishmael, modern day Arab, Elam, a modern day Persian, okay, or the Persians of the nation of Elam, all right, which them dot heads are also Elamites, but in this case, in regards to prophecy in Ezekiel 38 chapter, regarding the Persians that would go to war against this whore, would include the kings of the east, which would include the modern day Persians of this BRICS alliance, okay, which is of the kings of the north, okay, the kings of the east of this north country, or specifically in this context of prophecy here in Jeremiah 50:9, all right, that within the northeastern hemisphere that would shoot these nukes upon the western hemisphere. America, Babylon the Great. All right. So this is let's see. Jeremiah. Okay, this is Psalm 60. This is Psalm chapter 60 and verse 8. And let me get this in the NLT actually. Psalm 60 and 8. In NLT, it says, but Moab, my wash basin, all right, the wash pot, all right, as it says in the King James Version. But in the NLT version, it says, but Moab, my wash basin, will become my servant, and I will wipe my feet on Edom and shout in triumph over Philistia. All right, so it further confirms that the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai, pursuing the Proverbs 21:1, including Moabites, working for the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai on the left-hand side, just as you worked for him when he brought you against us as a result of our iniquity. Case in point. Let me see. Give me 1 second, Baba Shah. Yeah, this is Judges 3 and verse 12. And it says, and the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai. And the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai. And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel, and possessed the city of palm trees. Here's the point of verse 14. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. All right, Moab is a progenitor of you so-called Chinese. Okay, so you had us in slavery for 18 years, man. All right, so everything that's happening with you is a part of the affliction, oppression that you also brought against us. It speaks about here in Judith 16 and 17. Okay. Give me 1 second. All right, so this is let me see. This is Judah 16 and 17. It says, woe to the nations that rise up against my kindred. The Lord, Yahweh by Shem Shai Almighty, will take vengeance on them, Salakia, in the day of judgment, and putting fire and worms in their flesh, and they shall fill them and weep forever. Okay. All right. So you're going to receive a great portion of affliction in the midst of this last war, specifically feeling that fire and wishing you were dead, burning up, and like a fire for all that, the madness. All right. Through depression, affliction, you ever caused our people to endure in times past. All right. So despite what this Chinese official Zia Belong said about J.D. Vance, being a peasant, further referring to modern day Babylonian in America, modern day with the virgin out of Babylon, America, Babylon, the greatest peasants, is really null and void because, the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai looks at you Moabites, you other heathen nations as peasants, or in this case, rather, degenerates. In this case, rather, okay, less than nothing. Pursuing Isaiah 40 and 17. Says China does not buckle under pressure from bullying. They do not cause trouble, nor are they afraid of trouble. Belong said using peasant jibe against the U.S. All right. Then we'll play this. See if I can play it.
是美国最大的贸易顺差地，但美国依然对香港如此加征关税，简直是蛮横霸道、无耻之极。这让世人更加看清。美国见不得香港好，是破坏香港人权自由、法治秩序和繁荣稳定的最大黑手。他不是要我们的税，而是要我们的命。美国一而再、再而三对香港进行遏制打压，换来的只能是其在香港的代理人的加速灭亡，最终必将反噬其自身，让美国那些乡巴佬们在中华民族5000年文明面前去哀鸣吧。
And he ended it off in a very angry tone. So, hey man, they're ready for war against you devils, man. All right, I'll leave it off at that. That's pretty much the point. So this is Proverbs 21 and 1, and it says, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, Yahweh by Shem Shai, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will." All right. So Yahweh by Shem Shai using the kings of the east, okay, to rise up against his whore. All right. Prophesied in Jeremiah 50 and 9. So I'm going to continue in this chapter in the 14th verse. It says, "Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her. Spare no arrows, for she has sinned against the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai. Shout against her round about. She hath given her hand. Her foundations are fallen. Her walls are thrown down. For it is the vengeance of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai. Take vengeance upon her, as she had done, do unto her." All right, because you devils have been known to terrorize these nations by invading them, through your military industrial complex and your intelligence agencies to usurp them under Western authority, by, and exacerbate their resources, exacerbate and exhaust their resources, and threaten their kings to be eliminated if they don't bow down and subject themselves under the wine of Babylon the Great. Case in point. Okay. But now, as it says in Joel, the 3rd chapter, the weak is saying the strong, including North Korea, for example, continuing to, keep, conduct these military drills where they're further perfecting their missiles, man. Okay, and sharpening their military tactics, or sharpening their militia by way of these military tactics. All right. So, within the Atlantic Sea and so forth, around those particular areas, a lot of military drills. Okay. Those arrows and would include these hypersonic missiles that China possesses that can reach America in anywhere between 20 to, as quick as 20 to 30 minutes, man. All right. This is how America, Babylon the Great will be destroyed in 1 hour, pursuant to Revelation, the 18th chapter. Okay. All right, so let me see. Let me go ahead and continue. There's a little bit more meat on here, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue. A little bit more meat on this. Okay, got Jeremiah 50 and 16. Cut off the sword from Babylon, and him that handled the sickle in the time of harvest. For fear of the oppressing sword, they shall turn everyone to his people, and they shall flee everyone to his own land. And this is the sentiment these nations have, these other heathen nations, especially against the whore. Could they see, like it says in Revelation 18th chapter, they would lament at her burning, roughly paraphrasing. Meaning what? They would lament because they would no longer be able to make money off this whore. They've been taking advantage of her. Okay, abusing her, if you will, in a geoeconomic sense more so than anything else. But not, abusing this place as Trump had, through Trump's rhetoric. Okay, it's been quite the contrary on behalf of Esau. All right, through pulling rank, with this internationally through this petrodollar. Case in point. By slapping tariffs and sanctions on these people, on these other nations, to the point they've got tired of this devil, man. So now they're at the point of no return, by leaving no more room for negotiation, but rather annihilation and obliteration of the whore America, Babylon the Great. Esau Edom's headquarters wickedness. All right, the hammer of the entire earth. Jeremiah 50:17 says, verse 16 again, cut off the sword from Babylon, and him that handled the sickle in the time of harvest. For fear of the oppressing sword, they shall turn everyone to his people, and they shall flee everyone to his own land. And this is exactly what's happening. All right, because you devils are going to be on an island all by yourself. Because it says in Revelation 17:16, your own European hegemony, the various member states of your European hegemony on behalf of this beast system are going to turn on you. All right, through NATO and the EU. Case in point. So I'm going to end it off on that note. I'm going to pray this lesson was further edifying, his and to elect, give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is God of a living, Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai Baruch Rash, that of Baba Ball, soon and very soon. Shalom to the elect, and on to the next one.